Welcome to Risky Conversations. This is a series of talks about the importance, the benefit, and also the risk of having authentic conversations. For this first episode, I want to talk about the conversations that are important for each of us to have within ourselves. There are many sides of us. We are complex creatures. And the problem, from my point of view, is that very often we demonize sides of ourselves. We lock them away behind closed doors in the dark because we've judged them. And I would like to suggest instead that it makes more sense to befriend, get to know, at least to respect each of these different, often frightening sides of ourselves. And let's think of it as having a kind of a family reunion, an internal family reunion, where the various parts of you are acquainted with one another, don't have to always love one another, but can, to a certain extent, rely on and benefit from one another. So how does this work? What happens when we are suddenly in a moment that is very painful, very difficult? What happens when I'm curled up on the bed and I just don't even want to get out and go see the world? I'm feeling so sad that it's all pointless. Or what happens when I'm so angry that I've blurted out some hurtful words to a person I love? Well, what typically happens when we do those things, when we have these moments that are painful, we deny them, we forget them, we dismiss them, or we judge them as being bad. Perhaps we feel ashamed of ourselves, or we perhaps glorify them and get defensive and try and claim that they're justified. In fact, what I'm suggesting is something very different than that. And it means putting aside the judgment and, in fact, getting to know those different sides of yourself. Why? Does it sound like a really dark, nasty place to go? Well, if you believe that we're originally sinful or somehow seething with unconscious self-destructive tendencies, as some psychological theories have claimed, then it might seem like a worthless or too dark of a place to go. But in fact, the evidence really is that all of our needs seek health. That in fact, human beings would rather be connected and understood. The first place to start, if you want to be understood by others, is to understand and accept yourself. So instead of pretending it's not there, forgetting about it, denying it, or glorifying it, let's sit with it. Let's lean into it. So this has worked for me. I have had moments where I sat bolt upright in bed at 4 a.m. with the sheets soaked in sweat. I was so terrified, so frightened of the prospect of the future, which looked at that time so bleak. But I've discovered that the more I tried to get rid of my anxiety, or my depression, or my anger, the harder they clung on. I discovered instead that it is possible actually to change your relationship with those painful feelings. Not to make them go away, but to change the relationship so that instead of a terrifying enemy, they become a kind of a stern teacher. Or, for our metaphor today, a family member, an uncle, a cousin, who isn't all that pleasant, but actually has something to offer. So let's take a look, for example, that anxiety, sitting bolt upright in bed, fearful of the future, almost in an altered state of panic. What possible value could that have? Well, it's out of control in that moment, but what it's helping me recognize is that life, in fact, is risky. that there is a lot to be watchful for. So anxiety is a great reminder to stay wakeful, to stay attentive, to be careful. The anger that is so hurtful to others, sometimes myself, is in fact a reminder too that I have needs that must be expressed. Perhaps not in that volcanic manner. There may be more balanced ways, but let's make friends with that anger and learn from it that yes, I do need to express myself. What about the sadness? That depressive feeling, overwhelming, makes me want to stay in bed, not even deal with anyone else. What's the point? Life seems so pointless and I'm so worthless. That's a recognition, actually, that pain, suffering, discomfort are in fact truly a part of life. That's a reality. Let's not distract necessarily from it, but recognize that even that depressive feeling is a recognition that reality carries in it some very, very upsetting truths. Even shame, that feeling of worthlessness, is a reminder that in fact you have standards. Those feelings of shame that embarrassed me at earlier phases of my life, I now recognize as the compass points that guided me towards the growth that I wanted. It's not a process that ever ends, right? What I'm suggesting is that we invite the various sides of ourselves, if not to be friends, at least to be family. Let's go for a ride. We'll have a reunion. Let's all jump in the bus. But who's going to drive the bus? Anger's too heavy on the gas pedal. I don't want to go that recklessly. And the whole anxiety is just going to steer jerkily back and forth. I don't think shame is ever going to get us past 5 miles an hour. And sadness won't even get us out of the driveway. No. There is a blue sky side of yourself, an overviewing self that is able at one and the same time to recognize and acknowledge the relationship of all those sides of ourselves. Because ultimately we are, each of us, a whole self. Let that person, that best self, be in the driver's seat. But don't kick the other selves off the bus because they aren't going to leave anyway. You'll just feel like a failure because you can't make your anxiety disappear. But in the bus behind you, in the seat back there, may be helpful to warn you that there's a curve in the road up ahead. That anger might help keep you motivated to keep trucking. Even though sadness is important too, to remind you every once in a while that it's time to slow down and take a rest. If we make friends with our family, at least come to respect them, then in fact we release a lot of energy in ourselves. All that psychic energy it took to demonize each one of those painful parts and keep them locked behind closed doors, hidden in the dark. There's a lot of relief when these various sides get to come out and interact and play and not take the driver's seat, but be there. And in fact, it's not just a self issue either, because making friends with these sides of yourself will help you make friends with others, help you to be more accepting, because now you can empathize with the sadness, the pain, the frustration, without demonizing other people either. And that will be the topic of our next meeting together. I look forward to coming back and hopefully sharing some of your time to talk about some risky conversations that I strongly recommend you have with those you most love. Till then, be well. Good day.